All right, everyone. So first of all, your answers are on your Google Classroom, so you can check your answers there, see which problems it is that, or which problems you need to go over, um, and then just fast forward to those different problems and watch only those problems. You don't need to watch the entire video, unless you want to, just as an extra review, because we will be using this worksheet as the review for your 4-1-4-2 quiz. So I'm going to go through all of these problems. Basically, all we're doing here is just solving and graphing inequalities. So we're going to start out with some regular inequalities, and then we'll get into compound inequalities for the last 5. So you're going to have 10 questions on your quiz. So make sure you're using this as a good like time management thing. Make sure that you can complete these problems on time in the 40 minutes. So, all right, here we go. Again, first thing that we want to do is distributive property. So I'm going to bring down the 6. Again, I'm going to go through these problems. I may go through them kind of quickly for some of you. If you need to pause, rewind, whatever, feel free to do that. So I'm going to take this -6 and distribute it through. Okay, so we're going to multiply that through both of those. So -6 times 1 is -6. -6 times -4 is a positive 24x. Rewrite the rest of the equation is greater than or equal to -192. Okay? Next, we need to combine our like terms. So over here on the left-hand side, I have 6 minus 6, which is actually a 0. So those are going to cancel out. Then I'm left with 24x is greater than or equal to -192. Then I need to divide, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 24 so I can get x by itself. So divide both sides by 24, and I get x is greater than or equal to -8. When we graph this on the number line, we want to go ahead and put that number in the middle. So I'm going to put -8 in the middle, one number less than it on the right. I'm sorry, one number greater than it on the right, one number less than it on the left. At -8, this is greater than or equal to, so at -8, we're going to put a solid circle, so put your solid dot there, and then shade to the right. Number 2, again, same thing, we're going to start off with the distributive property, so bring down -7. I'm going to multiply this -5 through, so let me change the color here, so -5 times 4x is -20x. And -5 times 8 gives me a -40. Bring down the rest of the inequality is less than or equal to -147. Now, combine your like terms. So I got a -7 and a -40. Okay, those two are like terms. So bring down your -20x. This will be a -47 is less than or equal to -147. Move the number that does not have a variable, so I'm going to add 47 to both sides. -47 plus 47 is 0. Those are gone. -20x is what I'm left with on the left-hand side is less than or equal to -100 is the right-hand side. Last thing, divide both sides by -20. Divide both sides by -20. And I just divided by a negative, so I'm going to make sure that I flip my inequality sign. Left-hand side is just x, right-hand side is 5. So on my number line, again, put the 5 in the middle. So 5 goes in the middle. One number less than it on the left, there's my 4. One number greater than it on the right, there's my 6. And at 5, we have this greater than or equal to, so that means a filled in closed circle, so fill it in. And shade to the right, those are all the numbers that are greater than 5. Number 3, again, same first step. Okay, so rewrite the -6 plus 7, or I'm sorry, plus 6x is greater than, now we're going to multiply this 7 through. So 7 times 8x is 56x, and 7 times -8 is -56. Now you can do these following steps multiple ways, but what I like to do is I like to move my variable to the left, and I'll explain why here in a second. So subtract 56x from both sides. 56 minus 56 is 0. Left-hand side is negative 6. We get minus 50x is greater than negative 56. Then move the number with no variable. So I'm going to add 6, and you could have done those two steps in opposite order. We could have moved the 6 first and then the 56x. Doesn't really matter. You got to do them both, so it doesn't really matter the order that you do them in. This is just the way that I prefer to do it. So negative 50x is greater than, the right-hand side is negative 50. And my last step is to divide by negative 50. And you can see here that we will end up with, well, first of all, let's point out that we just divided by a negative, so we got to flip the sign. But then we're left with x is less than negative 50 divided by negative 50 is 1. So now the reason why I like to have the variable on the left is because when I do my graphing, let me go ahead and put my number line down here, put the number I just solved for in the middle, one number greater than it on the right, one number less than it on the left. At 1, this is just a less than, so I'm going to put an open circle. Now, the reason why I like to have the variable on the left is because when you have the variable on the left, whichever way your arrow is pointing, your inequality, whichever way that's pointing, that's the way you're shading. So that's pointing to the left, so I will shade to the left. Okay? Next, same process here. We are bringing the left-hand side down because nothing is being done there, and the right-hand side I will multiply 7 through. So 7 times x is 7x. 7 times 4 is 28. Next, start moving stuff around. So I'm going to do this one in opposite order. In the last problem over here, I moved the x term first. So this one I'm going to move the other number first just to show you that it does not matter what order you do these in, okay? So 4 minus 4 is 0. So I'm left with 4x is greater than 7x plus 24. Okay, 28 minus 4 is 24. Then I will move my 7x over. So this is a positive 7x, so I will do the opposite and subtract. So I'm subtracting 7x. And again, we're moving the entire term. We're not separating the 7 from the x, which would require us to divide. So in this case, since we're moving the entire term over, we're actually subtracting that because that's a positive 7x. Okay, so 4x minus 7x gives us a negative 3x is greater than, bring down my 24. Last step, now we are separating the number from the x, which requires us to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And now we're ready. Oops, I guess I should divide that first, and then we'll be ready for our number line. So we end up with x. We just divided by a negative, so we need to flip our inequality. 24 divided by negative 3 is negative 8. All right, now we're ready for our number line. I was getting a little ahead of myself there. Now we're ready for the number line. Number we just solved for goes in the middle. Oh, come on. Number we just solved for goes in the middle. There's the negative 8. What's going on here? There we go. Wrong color. Negative 8 goes in the middle. One number less than it. One number less than it on the left, negative 9. One number greater than it on the right, negative 7. At negative 8, since this is just a less than, I'm going to put an open circle. The inequality is pointing to the left, so we shade to the left. That's all the numbers that are less than negative 8. Number 5, this is our last just regular inequality before we get into the compound inequality. So 19 plus 4x is greater than or equal to, distribute the negative through, which really all that does is change our signs, negative 1 minus x. Now I'm going to bring the x over, so it's a negative x, so I will add x to both sides. Negative x plus x is 0, so they're gone. Gone. Over here we get 19 plus 4x plus x is 5x is greater than or equal to negative 1. Now we're going to move the 19 over, so it's a positive 19. I got to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract. So 19 minus 19 is 0. Scribble them out. They're gone. Bring down my 5x is greater than or equal to negative 1 minus 19 gives me negative 20. Next step and final step in the solving part is to divide by the number in front of the x. So I will divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so I'm left with a 1x is greater than or equal to negative 20 divided by 5 is a negative 4. Graph it. Put the number I just solved for in the middle. One number less than it on the left. One number greater than it on the right. At negative 4, greater than or equal to, so that means a filled in closed circle goes at negative 4. The arrow is pointing to the right, so I will shade to the right. Those are all the numbers greater than negative 4. All right, so there are 5 questions on the multi-step inequalities, okay? When we get into these compound inequalities, like I was saying before, the solving part of each of them will be 2-step equations or less, okay? You're not going to see these multi-step equations where we have distributive property and combining like terms and, you know, all this extra stuff that's in here. And the reason is because we're basically solving 2 problems in one. So we're going to solve just 2-step equations. So when you're doing this, we're going to move the number that does not have a variable. So add 9 to both sides. Okay? I'm going to put a little divider here to separate my 2 problems. So negative 9 plus 9 is 0. So I'm left with 10n is greater than or equal to 51 plus 9 is 60. And your last step is to divide by the number in front of your variable. So we're going to divide both sides by 10. And I'm left with n is greater than or equal to 6. Now, before we get into our graphing, we need to finish the other side so we know which number is the greater number and which number is the smaller number. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this one before I do any graphing. So again, move the number with no variable. So that's a negative 4. I'm going to do the opposite and add 4. So those are gone. So I have a negative 5n is greater than or equal to 16 plus 4 is 20. Divide both sides by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. I just divided by a negative, so I'm going to put a little note here that I need to flip my inequality. And left-hand side, negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1, so I have 1n. 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. So when we graph this, now I know which number is my smaller number and which number is my greater number. So I'm going to put my smaller number on the left. There's my negative 4. Bigger number on the right. There's my 6. I'm going to graph this one first. N is greater than or equal to 6 means closed circle at 6, shaded to the right. Less than or equal to means closed circle at negative 4, and less than means shaded to the left. And again, like I said, most of your OR inequalities will look like this. Not always. They could both be going in the same direction, whether it's both to the left or both to the right. But typically they will look like this, okay? Your open or closed circles and then shaded on the outside. The AND inequalities that we'll get to later, those ones are always your 2 circles and shaded in between, okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so number 7, again, same process here. I'm just going to go through and do this. Move the number that does not have a variable. Scribble. 2x is greater than or equal to 23 minus 7 is 16. Divide by the number in front of your variable, so I'm dividing both sides by 2, and I'm left with x is greater than or equal to 8. Right-hand side, move the number with no variable, so not right-hand side, this other problem, I should say it like that. So subtract 1, I'm left with 7x is less than or equal to 21. Divide both sides by 7, I get x is less than or equal to 3. Now I'm ready to graph. Put my smaller number on the left. There's my 3. Bigger number on the right. There's my 8. And we start graphing. Start with this. X is greater than or equal to 8 means at 8 I put a closed fill-it-in circle shaded to the right. X is less than or equal to 3 means I put a closed filled-in circle at 3. and I shade to the left. And we are done with that problem. 3 more left. Now this is an and inequality, even though we don't see the word and in here anywhere. If you see this string like this, that means it's an and inequality, which means when we get to our graphing, we're going to have our circles, whatever they are, open or closed, and shaded in between. Okay, that's the way all the and inequalities look, and just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and go through this. So first of all, move the number with no variable, so that means adding 9. But again, I got to add it everywhere. I can't just add it to one part. I have to add it to all 3 parts. Okay, so keep that in mind. Over here, I end up with a negative 36 is less than 9x is less than negative 18. Last step, divide by your number in front of the variable. And again, we're going to divide that by every part. So divide by 9, divide by 9. Now, because the 36 and the 18 are negative, that does not tell us to flip the signs. We only flip the signs when this number right here is negative. Okay? So this is negative 4 is less than 9 divided by 9 is 1, so 1x is less than negative 18 divided by 9 is negative 2. So on our number line, excuse me, I'm going to put my smaller number on the left. That's my negative 4. I'm going to put my bigger number on the right. That's my 2, my negative 2. And I'm ready to graph. So both of these are strictly less than, so that means they are open circles. And since it's an and inequality, I know I'm shading in between. Number 9, we got 2 more left here. Number 9. Again, let's solve these separately. Let me put my little divider here. All right, so move the number with no variable, so subtract 3. 3 minus 3 is 0, so left-hand side is 3x is less than. This is not 0. Okay, this is going to give me a negative 6. Divide both sides by 3 to get the x by itself. X is less than negative 2. My right-hand side, first of all, move. I keep saying right-hand side. That's not the right way to say that. My other inequality, move the number with no variable, so I subtract 9 from both sides. I'm left with 6x is greater than or equal to 15 minus 9 is 6. Divide both sides by 6 to get my x by itself. So x is greater than or equal to 1. This is an or inequality, so I will graph these separately. Smaller number on the left, bigger number on the right. X is less than negative 2. It's just less than, so I leave it open, and I'm going to shade to the left. This one over here is a greater than or equal to 1, so at 1 I'm going to put a filled in circle and shade to the right. And there's our final answer. Last problem here, I need to, again, this is a string of inequalities, so I'm going to just do exactly what I did with number 8. Start off by moving the negative 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. That's a terrible 7. Let me try that one again. Add 7. There we go. That's a little better. So add 7, add 7, add 7. All 3 parts need to be added by 7. So these are gone. Cross them out. Negative 42 plus 7 gives us a negative 35. Is less than or equal to, my middle part here is just 5n. Is less than negative 12 plus 7 is negative 5. And again, the last step here to get rid of the 5, I need to get n by itself. I'm going to divide by 5, and I will divide all 3 parts by 5. Again, I'm not flipping my inequalities because I just divided by a positive. Okay, just because these top numbers are negative, that has nothing to do with that. So negative 7 is less than or equal to n. There's no more 5 there anymore. N is less than negative 1. Put my number line down. Smaller number on the left, that's a negative 7. Bigger number on the right, that's a negative 1. Let's see what we got here. At negative 7 was a less than or equal to, so that means filled in circle at negative 7. At negative 1, I had just a less than, so that means open circle. And it's an and string inequality, so I shade in between. Okay, so again, This is exactly what your quiz will look like, okay? So make sure that you understand how to do all these problems. Make sure that you're showing your work, solving and graphing. You need to have all those parts down. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions.